EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to Birds 365, a Thursday edition of Birds 365, your daily deep dive into all things Philadelphia Eagles. I'm Zander, Krause, joined by my co-host, Johnny Mack, the number one Eagles beat reporter in town, John McMullen, as we bring you the latest news, insights, and everything up to keep you up to date on the Birds. Johnny Mack, good Thursday to you, sir. How you doing on this Thursday morning?
Yeah, getting closer. Turning the page. Cincinnati on to Cincinnati.
Yeah, this is no small test, John. I started to dive deep into this game last night. This is a good football. I know they're not a great football team. They're 3-4, but anytime you go up against Joe Burrow, John, you got a tall task.
Yeah, that dude's special. We were talking before we got on the air here. There's a few quarterbacks that you sort of place in that top tier, whatever you want to call it, elite. A lot of people use that term. Tier one, if you want to go the Mike Sando routes. He's a tier one guy. He's special. And a lot of people say, well, why are they 3-4 then? Well, again, they're not out there by themselves. That doesn't mean you can win football games by yourself. It just elevates you. And as I often say, you got a greater margin of error when you have a quarterback like Joe Burrow. I wouldn't dismiss the Cincinnati Bengals at 3-4 when it comes to the playoffs, because they're liable to pick it up at any time, and they started. Obviously, they're much like the Eagles. They were able to take advantage of a little bit of a soft spot in the schedule to get back in things. But yeah, you better mind your P's and Q's when Joe's out there.
Yep, no doubt about it. We got a good show planned for everybody. We'll have an opened up hour number one. We're going to preview the game. We're going to talk about what Johnny Mack learned yesterday at practice. Get an update on the Philadelphia Eagles, the injuries, who John is expecting to play. We might not have a full update on that, but we will get what Johnny Mack knows today. Then we'll talk to Kaden Steele from NJ.com in hour number two. Looking forward to talking to Kaden coming up. A reminder to everybody, when you hit that like button in the first 10 minutes of the show, it helps us immensely. So smash that like button if you're in there on the live chat. Appreciate everybody watching on YouTube, and appreciate everybody who watches after the fact or listens to the podcast of Birds 365. We appreciate you. Johnny Mack, you said Joe Burrow is a tall task. Real quick before we dive into the practice yesterday, he might not have the best team. He's got 14 touchdowns, 2 picks, and 110 passer rating, good for second in the league. The dude is red hot right now, Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and he does have good weapons. So, if they can figure out a way how to block the Eagles' front, I think it'll be a long afternoon for the Eagles' defense. But
and the Bengals improved that O-line a little bit this year, right? I thought they.
Well, I think they improved a little bit last year. They brought in Alex Kapp a couple years ago. They brought in Orlando Brown, but now he's hurt. So that affects and trying to get by with Amarius Mims, a rookie with a lot of talent. A lot of speculation the Eagles might be interested in him, where they were picking probably a little bit too raw at this point to be ready to play. Would be interesting to see if Jeff Stoutland got a hold of him, though. I think that would change some things. So I would say overall it's still pretty much a weakness, but it has gotten better in previous years. This year hasn't been great. And that's been their biggest issue offensively, because you talk about Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and their running game isn't phenomenal either, but at their height when Joe Mixon was a big time back, they're certainly not at that level. And the big storyline this week is sort of Sidney Brown and Chase Brown, identical twins facing off against each other. And Chase has been doing a nice job with the Bengals trying to sort of seize the number one running back spot from Zach Moss, who's kind of okay, nondescript, but you're not worried about their running game as much. I think if Chase is out there, at least to have he's a lot like Sidney in the fact that he's very explosive athletically. So at least you have to worry about that a little bit more. So I think that's where the Bengals eventually want to go. But we'll see if he can get there. But if you give Joe Burrow time to get it to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and even Andre Yosabas from Princeton, Andre Yosabas. I have to get used to that name because it's spelled crazy, but he's doing some nice things as a third receiver as well.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. Johnny Mac, let's get into practice. Yesterday, a couple guys did not practice. Zach Baum was a DNP, Mekhi Becton DNP, Dallas Goedert DNP, and Byron Young DNP. Obviously, the three names there that are of concern are Becton, Goddard, and Baum. Do you have any update on them, or still kind of a wait and see game on those three players for Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, it's at the point where we didn't even ask Nick Sirianni about injuries
know.
because it's a complete waste of time. So, Mekhi's in the concussion protocol, so we've been through that enough to know it is what it is if he gets through it in a week or he doesn't. So that is in the hands of an independent neurologist. And even that, when Lane Johnson looked like he was going to get through it, then the Eagles said, all right, let's be cautious and gave him a little bit of extra time. So concussions are always murky. As far as guys getting back, certainly, and it's become more difficult around the league to get back in a week. So way too early to talk about Mekhi Becton. Dallas Goedert not being out there, not positive, hamstring injury, generally a multi-week injury. So early betting line, I would say, is on track to miss his second consecutive game with the hamstring. And then Zach Baum is the most interesting because he missed practice with a shoulder injury. He left late in the game against the Giants, and I believe he got hurt the play before they pulled all the starters. So I think he played 48 snaps. The guys who played all the snaps were at 49. So he got injured right before that, unfortunately. But obviously, if he's not able to go, could be Jeremiah Trotter. I think the most likely is Oren Burks, actually. Oren Burks
Yeah, that wouldn't
came in.
surprise me.
Oren Burks came in that one play. But, that doesn't mean that much. They do cross-train their linebackers. But there does seem to be a little bit of optimism about Baum playing on Sunday. So I would say of the big three, he's got the best chance. And again, I hate to even with Becton, it's just I put that onto a different category because I'm told he feels fine, but the protocol is what it is. But with Baum, I think there's some optimism he might be able to get through it. So, if he gets out there today or even Friday, would be a good sign. But obviously it's touch and go. And Byron Young obviously is going to be a healthy scratch if he's not an injury scratch. So that's not as important as an injury, but he's dealing with the hamstring as well.
Yeah, Zach Baum's the interesting one there because we know what it looks like when Goddard's not out there. At least we think we know what it looks like. We saw what it looked like last week. We know what it looks like when Becton's not out there. It's going to be interesting to see what they decide to do to fill Baum's shoes if he's not out there. You mentioned Oren Burks or potentially Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I think many would like to see the rookie out there, but we want to see Zach Baum out there. I think we need him out there for his prowess and his tackling abilities, Johnny Mac, but we'll see what ends up happening there. John, any other takeaways from the practice yesterday? And then we'll get into the practice squad moves. A couple guys rested yesterday. Saquon Barkley rest.
Yeah, a lot of rest guys. See, you can just simply say rest when you say DNP, so did not participate. So Saquon, understandably so. That's been the Eagles' plan. The Eagles have said pretty consistently because we've asked them a bunch of times, load management, blah, 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 too many touches, blah, blah, blah. And they always say, nope, we're going to use them as much as we need to use them and rest them and sort of load manage during the week. So this is an indication of that. He's not going to do much in practice for the rest of the year, I would imagine.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes
so
sense, honestly.
yeah, so he's in a group with Brandon Graham, obviously should be obvious. Darius Slay should be obvious, and Josh Sweat as well. So those were the guys who were all limited with rest designations, and Eli Ricks was also limited with a hamstring injury, but he's been a healthy scratch if he is healthy. And then full participation for Alberto and Anais Smith, who practiced in full. And those are the guys in the 21-day practice window. Smith, they have to activate him by Monday, so the day after the game. A lot of us thought he would be the guy to get the 53rd spot.
Right,
That
for
they
Paris.
gave to Jack. Yeah, that they gave
Right.
Jack Driscoll.
Okay.
And they still have some other moves they could make. I mean, to get Anais on the roster, whether it's before the game or after the game. But I find it very hard to believe they're going to start his 21-day practice window to completely shut him down. Alberto, they have a little bit more time with. His practice window was opened on October 16th, so you have 21 days from that date. So they still have time with him. And sometimes guys get injured in games, and you don't want that to happen, but the roster crunch takes care of itself. So they have some time with Alberto, but they don't have much time left with Anais Smith.
Yeah, we'll see what I thought that's why they moved Paris Campbell to get him back, but I guess they moved up Jack Driscoll, so we'll see what ends up happening there. John, any other takeaways from the practice outside of those? Anything stick out to you? Anything that Jalen Hurts said was notable in your opinion? What did you take away from your trip down into the NovaCare complex?
I don't think there's anything Jalen says that's notable. I think he
there's not.
purposefully says things that aren't notable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you sense a little bit of frustration with the and I was in the locker room, so I just watched Jalen. For those who don't know, they switched the schedule, and the locker room was open during Jalen Hurts' press availability. So you have to choose, basically. Do you want to talk to guys in the locker room or go to Jalen's press conference? And I made the Soapy's choice of staying in the locker room because you can watch Jalen on Twitter or YouTube or whatever. But,
right, you can get back to that, yeah.
So, it is what it is. I wish he was more open at times, but you get what you get, and I do think there's some frustration, and we all know there's some frustration with the first quarter struggles, and they're trying to figure it out, believe me. And maybe they'll try tempo at the start. Tempo seems to pick them up, so why not start with tempo? That's my thought process.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we'll see what they end
Of
up
course,
doing.
if you go 3 and out, then people are even more upset. But
Yeah, right. You go 3 and out on tempo too, boy. Oh boy.
yeah, but why not give it a shot? One game, give it a shot. Yeah.
John, before we get into this game, I want to ask you about the quarterback, Jalen Hurts. A lot has been made. A lot has been talked about with him recently. We've talked to all of our guests. We talked to Mike and BLG yesterday. We talked to Lesbo and on Tuesday about it. Where are you on the quarterback? You think some of the commentary we've had here on the show makes sense? Do you think he's in a good spot? Do you have any concerns with what you've seen from him early in the year? Can he handle the Kellen Moore offense? Or am I overreacting? Where are you on the quarterback right now?
Well, I think there's a lot of concerns, but yeah, I'm not at the point where some people have, and I'm not saying you, but some people have completely pulled the plug. He can't be this, he can't be that. He's already been that. That's sort of what I default to. So if 2022 is the ceiling, that's fine. You just got to get closer to the ceiling. which they haven't been. And that's what they're trying to figure out. But they have to, the one thing where I disagree with, I think most Eagles fans, and maybe not, maybe I think I don't I think most realize that if you want to go to where you want to go, and let's be honest, this team wants to go to the Super Bowl, and certainly the fan base thinks they should go to the Super Bowl. So it's counterintuitive to say run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. You got to be more well-rounded. You got to be able to, what if Joe Burrow gets hot on this, weekend, this particular weekend? What if he's got his A-level stuff and all of a sudden Cincinnati's piling up points? You got to be able to keep up with that. And they did it in week 1. There was a lot of points scored in Brazil, and they were able to do it. So they're still able to do it. They still have AJ and Devontae. They're not going to most likely have Dallas Goedert, but they still have 2 of the best playmakers in the game. They should be able to do it. It shouldn't be this difficult. And they got to figure out why it's this difficult. Now, Jordan Mailata not being there, and that's something I should have mentioned. Did get a chance to catch up with Jordan. He's doing well. He's hoping to be back after the 4 games he has to miss, but his absence is a big one, obviously. And then if you add Mekhi Becton, the Eagles were able to persevere against a very bad football team. Can they persevere without those 2 guys against a good team? Not a great team, but a good team. That's going to be a big impetus of this game. But the offense is yeah, they gotta figure it out, because right now it looks, I'm not going to say bad, because they have AJ and they're throwing the football down the field and it's
I
a
like that
perfect
word
throw. And
choppy, I think it was, or clunky,
yeah,
or
it's
whatever.
very choppy. It's very clunky,
Yeah.
whatever adjective you want to use. And it shouldn't be with the talent that they have.
John, you mentioned there was a couple concerns that you had with Jalen, and just, I know this is just your opinion, not you being a reporter or anything, but what are those concerns
Well, the
for
ball's
you
not
as
coming
you
out
were
of his hand. And why isn't the ball coming out of his hand? Is it because he doesn't trust what he sees? Is it because he's looking for the big play? He's pushing for the big play. He's ignoring the underneath stuff. Why? Why is the ball not coming out of his hands? I always bring up that time to throw from Next Gen Stats. He's near the bottom of the league. The only 2 quarterbacks behind him are true traditional play action quarterbacks that are supposed to be behind him, because there are different styles of offense. They don't play that style of offense. I go back to his Super Bowl season when he was at 2.78, and now he's back over 3.1. And that might not seem like a lot, but that's an eternity in the NFL. And he's never going to be Tua, who gets the ball out quicker
right.
than
It's not
anybody.
his style.
Yeah, not his style, but he's got to be middle of the road. He's got to be closer to where he was in 2022, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. And I think that's what Kellen Moore should be working on. Doug Nussmeier should be working, and I'm sure they are. Like, why? Why is the reason for that? We talk about Saquon Barkley in the passing game all the time. Well, he's not been relevant in the passing game because of what we talk about outside of the wheel route and the opener. We talked about all offseason. This guy just doesn't throw the ball on running backs. He doesn't dump it all. Now, part of that I'm okay with, because there are different styles and he's not the point guard type quarterback.
Right.
So I'm not expecting a Chuck Mormon-like level of dump offs, but sometimes it's a good thing. And he just and they tried to get it to Saquon on a couple swing routes against the Giants. Didn't go anywhere, but I'm not talking about design plays. I'm talking about progression football, like you said yesterday. That he's got to get better. Got to get better. True progression football. All right, number one's not open. Number two, and even number three.
Right.
I'd love to get to number two. And too often it's number one or bust.
Yeah, one bust and bail to the right. That's what I see. Now, like I said, I don't profess to be a quarterback guru or an expert. I can just call it from what I see, and when I watch tape, I did watch a couple people do some tape breakdowns, guys that I respect. Greg Cosell was one of them. You do see it. And now, like I said, I'm not a quarterback expert or a guru. I can only analyze it from what I see. Now, one thing you said there, John, I want to go to. You said big plays. And part of me wonders if it's not all Jalen that wants the big plays, because I listened to Nick the other day at the press conference. I listened to you tell me about the organizational philosophies. Like Nick the other day mentioned when you were talking about sacks. He's like, well, yeah, for us, it's big play, it's explosive plays, it's turnovers, and then it's sacks. That's the next metric. And I'm like, boy, this team really loves explosive plays. And I get it. It's a good metric, and it does tilt the game. It tilts the scale in your favor as you say. It improves your margin of error. Are they too infatuated with that? Like, is that why Jalen's always looking deep and not looking underneath a little bit more or getting to some shorter throws? Like, is there too much of an infatuation with the big explosive plays instead of kind of letting them come naturally?
I wouldn't say a fascination because, like, they're not the only team. I mean, everybody talks about explosive plays because
Right.
there's the two stats that correlate to winning the most in the NFL are turnover ratio and explosive plays. Win them both, you're going to win the game. It's like 98%. Really weird things have to happen if you win both of those categories and you don't win a football game. So that's why everybody, not just the Eagles, that's why everybody's obsessed with explosive plays. Where I think the Eagles get mucked up is they had so much success with it. Same with Kansas City during the Tyreek Hill era. Kansas City, people seem to forget because they win in the end. They really struggled when teams started playing, all right, we're going to play our safeties in the parking lot, and you're going to have to take underneath. You're going to have to be patient. And there was like a half a season where they were, what's wrong with the Kansas City offense? They really struggled because they had so much, they were so used to it. And you're trying to press, and all of a sudden teams are taking it away. And you got to recorrelate your whole mindset and be patient and say, all right, we're going to dump it off. And they were able to do it, recover, and change the way they play offense. The Eagles haven't been able to do it to this point. Now, when I say haven't, they're still successful. They're still a top 10 offense, but to where they want to be, they haven't recovered. And they haven't gotten patient enough. They haven't been disciplined enough. Because remember, the whole thought process behind that from a defensive standpoint is, all right, we're going to make you go 15 plays and you're going to make a mistake that sets you back in that 15 plays. That's the whole mentality there. So where people get frustrated when the Eagles play that way defensively,
Right.
and somebody is patient, goes, and you have all the underneath completions and the 90% completion percentage. What you're counting on is the false start or the sack or the missed block that sets people back. And it's tough to be disciplined. And right now I would say, yeah, the Eagles are not disciplined, and they're too often pushing for big plays. And I think it has, not that they're obsessed with it, but they had so much success getting them. They think it should be easier to get them.
Got it. I do think there's something there, and we'll continue to monitor it. I know the Eagles like that, and just trying to diagnose here where you are on Jalen Hurts and create some conversation. about the quarterback. I overall, I feel okay about Jalen. I feel like we can still win with him in a big way. But as you point out, it does look clunky so far. Last question on Jalen Hurts. Any issue, and I know, I guess we won't know the exact nature of this or the exact percentage of this. Any issue with how much he's changing the plays at the line of scrimmage, in your opinion? And just for context, I watched I watched the show, The Quarterback Show. Did you watch that on Netflix? I never watched it when it came out.
Yeah, I did.
And I watched it, and I'm watching Kirk Cousins, and I know it's not a perfect comparison, but the reason I thought about this was Kevin O'Connell doesn't expect Kirk Cousins to change that at the line of scrimmage, and when he did, Kevin's like, "Yo, dude, did you call that up by yourself? Why did you call that? I could have gotten you into a better formation, a better play there." And I was taken aback because I'm like, I thought Kirk would be one of those quarterbacks that had autonomy at the line. He does a little bit. Not when then this was when he was with Vikings, but with Kevin O'Connell. But you think Jalen's calling too much at the line of scrimmage? Any issue with that, or are you good with that?
Well, there's a lot of difference. Like what you just said about Kevin O'Connell, I don't like it about young coaches because they think they know better than the guy playing the game. Now, you get to the point, you get a player like that, you should. That's, I always say, and not Kirk to a certain extent, but the obvious ones, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. That's what you should be striving for as a coach. And if you're not striving, this is my biggest criticism of Chip Kelly when he came in. He didn't want a quarterback like that. He wanted a guy to just run what he called and do what he wanted. And I'm like, that's ego. That's, if you don't want Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, get the fuck out.
Right.
I don't want you as my coach, but and a lot of young coaches, I would say more young coaches are like that, closer to Chip than, having the egoless sort of ability to say, wow, I'm lucky. I found a quarterback that can do this. I'm going to utilize it to the best of my ability. So to that aside, obviously Jalen's not at that level. And most quarterbacks aren't, the vast majority. But I would say that, most modern offenses are built in with, run, pass, run, and you call one. So every play call has a run embedded in it or a pass, and you basically kill from one to the other. So, that's generally how it happens. You're just killing from one play to another. Nobody's making these wild changes. That's not built into the play, which is part of the ugliness of modern football, in my estimation. But so is he doing it too much? I don't know. It's all about, and again, I go back to Tom too much because Tom's Tom. Who else are you going to go to?
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, if people have a problem with that, he said, and he gave the best example of play calling, the best explanation of play calling I think I've ever heard from anybody. And that's you're just calling probabilities. So on 3rd and long, you think they're going to be in this defense.
Right.
Because
you walk up to the line and you're like, boy, if they're in man coverage, I'm going to be in a good spot right here with this play.
So the probabilities, this is how they play 3rd and long, the vast majority. You're calling the probability. You're counting cards, however you want to describe it. And then if they come out in something else, you got to be savvy enough to get your team in the better position. So in the case of Tom, had a much wider menu, Peyton, Aaron Rodgers, people like that, than young quarterbacks who basically have the 2 options. So is he doing it too much? Well, depends on your definition. When he does it on 4th and 3 to AJ and drops it in the bucket, everybody's happy.
Right.
Why shouldn't they be? Is it a good decision? Probably not. Probably not. Low percentage play.
Right? Yeah. That's where I was going.
Low percentage play. Is it a good? So from a coach's standpoint, and this is why people don't understand Pro Football Focus, from a coach's standpoint, you might get a little bit of a downgrade on a play like that because you didn't make the right decision. And people can't wrap their heads around, a lot of people. So generally, again, how many times have I said people don't judge play calls, they judge play results? Well, people certainly don't judge audibles, they judge audible results. And does he do it too much? Probably.
No issue with it though, because as you mentioned earlier, you're
No, because I think he's been craving it and he's finally
Right.
got it. And there's the human nature of I finally got it. I'm going to use it.
And I think you're right about like it's a better approach than a Chip Kelly approach where it's just do what I call and that's it. So I guess it's the climb to get to
and again, it's not about getting to 10-1. It's about getting to the playoffs and making a run in the playoffs. So if you have some growing pains along the way and he's really cooking at the end of the season and he learned from some of the mistakes, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, no, I would argue that's the best case scenario. I mean, that's what you want. You want to climb. You want to get to the end and be your best version of your football team, which is hard to do in the NFL. Johnny Mac, great segment there on Jalen Hurts and the updates from yesterday. Appreciate everybody in the chat right now. Had one super chat we'll get to from General JD. General, thank you, brother. He says, J-Mac, what do you see happening with Bradberry? Thank you for the $2 super chat. Johnny Mac, your response.
Whew, that's a good one. I don't see him playing here. I'll say that. So, barring a bunch of injuries, which probably isn't going to happen before November 4th. Saw him the other day, last week in the locker room, seems fine, called himself day to day. Right now he's acting like somewhat of a player coach to the younger defensive backs. It's one of those things where I think he's going to sit the whole year and get paid and go find another opportunity after the season. But, it's going to be hard to trade him from the standpoint of, well, people think he's on injured reserve. They haven't started his practice window. But if you start his practice window, as I just explained with Anaya Smith, then you have a deadline to where you got 21 days to either put him up or shut him down. So, Howie probably should have moved on from that one. But, he is a professional, tremendous guy. He's not creating any waves. You're not going to get much value for him on the trade market. So if I were a betting man, and Bet US had those odds, which they probably don't, but I would say he's going to sit the whole season and move on after the season.
That'll do it for Bradberry here. We'll see what ends up happening there. General, thank you for the super chat, my man. We'll take any super chats here. Opened up hour number 1. We're going to talk to Kaden Steele in hour number 2 about the Eagles-Bengals, and we're going to dive into that game next on Birds 365 after the commercial break. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in this morning. Got a great crowd in here as always. Dank Bird Gang, what's up, brother? Jose, Abe, Jay Perfect, Callie, baby, good to see you, Callie. Brian Fleming, Daz is in here. Dominique Dabney, good to see everybody. Hit that like button if you're enjoying the show. We appreciate it. We'll get to our commercial break, and then we'll dive into Eagles-Bengals. The 4-2 Birds taking on the 3-4 Bengals. But Joe Burrow, anytime you play Joe Burrow, you got to watch out. Yeah, that's a good quarterback. So we'll talk about that next. Before I get to our break, let me tell you about our great friends at BetUS. You can see I just threw the graphic on the screen. It's YouTube 150 is the promo code. You can see that on the right side of the screen there. You get 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and then you get 125% on your second and third deposits, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. They have the fastest payouts in the industry, 24/7 customer support, and they'll even give you your own custom account manager. So go check out betus.com.pa. Big thanks to them for sponsoring Birds 365. We'll be back in 3 minutes, everybody, with Eagles-Bengals preview coming up next.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on Sports Grid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid.
Score and save in Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood day.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Thursday's edition of Birds 365 here, preparing for Week 8 in the NFL. Johnny Mac, can you believe that? Week 8 already, my man. We are cooking through this football season. Birds at 4-2, Bengals at 3-4 coming into this game. Week 8 already, Johnny Mac.
Yeah, enjoy the ride. It goes quick in the NFL. Yeah. That's part of their secret to their success, the scarcity. We were talking about that, you know. So many games aren't meaningful. You saw it last night with the Sixers in the NBA. They're just not even playing. They're good players.
Yeah, John, I hate to say it. The NBA is a tough watch for me. When I grew up, that was my favorite team, was the Sixers.
Same here. That's funny.
Julius
Serving Sixers were, for those who don't know, that was my favorite team.
Loved them. Yeah, my dad had a lot of legendary Sixers he loved.
Yeah, and I can't even stand that organization now. Sorry, Dave Schaller, but people are like, it's amazing to me when I think back on my youth, and I love that team, and now I literally don't care. Now, part of that is, I grew up and I covered the team, so
life happened a little bit.
Yeah, life happens, and you lose that to a certain degree. But I always had that in the back of my mind that I hope for success with that organization. Now I don't. I literally don't care. To the point where it's like, and we're talking about a little bit in relation, because we're an Eagles show, the first or last mentality. It's like there's no joy in the journey anymore for most people. And
Mike brought that up, man. Mike had a good point about that, huh?
Yeah, that has soured me on the whole process situation, where you had the feuding fan base, and it's like, yeah, you have to do it this way. You have to do. I've been covering sports for a long time. You can win a lot of different ways. You don't have to do it one way. You don't have to do it your way. You can do it a bunch of different ways, even in the NBA, as teams have proven over and over again. I remember getting retweeted Armageddon for all those loser process people. I was still covering the Sixers when they started that. And I said, you know what? I think Drew Holiday could be a meaningful piece on a championship team. And, I got destroyed.
Oh, you were right.
Yeah, I know on a bunch of championships and an Olympic team and on and on and on. But yeah, I mean, Michael Carter Williams. They got Michael Carter Williams. And Drew's still going. And good for Drew, by the way. But I digress. Same thing to a certain degree with the Eagles. And we're just talking, there's only 17 of these things, and they're going to probably make the playoffs. But enjoy the journey because it will be. And the Phillies, I mean, look, I think if you ask most Phillies fans, they'll say that's a bad season. I'm like, yeah, I will never get that. I will never get that.
Well, look, it is a little bit of a rock and a hard place, right? Because we're all sports fans. And in a way, John, being a sports fan is being perpetually upset because only one team can win.
Well, exactly. You're not going to win.
Fan bases in the NFL are going to be upset at the end of the year. That's how it is. So, but look, what do you want us to do? Not root for championships?
Well, my point is, and to use the Phillies as the best example right now because they're consistently good now. Now, long-term Philly fans know that was not always the case, to put it mildly. For many years, it was at times a bad organization, bad baseball, bad everything. And now they're consistently in a position, and this is the Andy Reid mentality, get consistently good, and you will be in a position to take advantage when the breaks go your way. That doesn't mean every year is going to end up with a championship.
Well, that means those years hurt more, John, because you have higher expectations.
Well, yeah, the expectation, which I talk about all the time, it crushes. Yeah. It crushes teams. It crushes people. And the assumption that you're better than everybody else is probably not correct because there's always going to be 2, 3, 4 teams that are at least equal that could, if things go right for them, that they're probably going to beat you. And I think when you get to that point, you can enjoy the journey more and you can enjoy good teams. But for the Sixers, I mean, they have, good players. They're going to win 50 games, blah, blah, blah. But if they don't win a championship, it's a failure. So, but they set that up. They're responsible.
Right. I do think some years have different. Like when you have one dude or you're built around Joel Embiid for how many years and you get bounced in the second round, it's like,
yeah, well, it's like, but the thing that pisses me off about the Sixers is the organization.
Yeah, they signed Paul George. Everybody's telling me how great Paul. I'm like, dude, you signed another 34-year-old guy. Why do we keep going down this route? It's like the third street.
It's not even that. I agree with you. It's too old to build around, but they're under investigation by the NBA again for their behavior. And I wrote on X this morning. I'm like, this team leads the league and be professional. Investigate. That's what it's about. It's like be professional.
Right.
I was just talking about honesty and the lack of honesty with the Eagles at times. It never works for you. Be professional. Now the Sixers take it to a ludicrous degree where the league has to get involved.
Yeah, right.
I'm not claiming the Eagles are at that level, but who knows? They might get there. But it never works. Be professional. Just say, I don't know how else to say it. Be professional, Sixers.
They are a painful organization. I mean, my fandom has dwindled a lot faster than yours did. I don't dislike them, obviously. Like I have a little bit more of a I like when they win, but I do not commit a lot of time to watching them, especially in the
I don't
regular
commit
season.
any.
Yeah.
I don't. I
Well,
literally said
the
it.
other part of it is also I work in sports all day, and like I've been trying to do so much and learning more about football and watching all these old football things, and I'm just like I got too much sports going on right now. I
Well,
love
part of it
hockey.
is,
Like I'm not going to watch the Sixers right
I'm
now.
down to one team I root for, and I'll get in trouble for telling what that
Yankees?
team is.
Is that my guess?
Yes,
Yankees?
yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
Why? Come on, you shouldn't be getting in trouble for
I'm
that.
joking. I'm joking.
Yeah.
In Philadelphia, but that's it. That's it.
John, I was at the. Here's a quick story. For
And that's
everybody.
because I never covered baseball. If I covered the Yankees, I wouldn't give a shit.
I know. Well, the Yankees are a cool franchise. I mean, anybody that says that they aren't is wrong. But here's a good story for everybody that'll probably get pissed in the chat at me because I'm a Philly guy. I was at the 2009 World Series Game 2 in the inaugural season at Yankee Stadium with my father, my brother, and my two cousins and my uncle. My cousins and my uncle are diehard Phillies fans. My dad grew up a diehard Yankees fan. He grew up, out in projects, and he had one station, Yankees and Giants. So he grew up a Yankees fan and a Giants fan. And I was at the 2009 game. I was 11 years old, and I'm decked out in Yankees gear at Yankee Stadium. And I still have that picture of us all at the game, which is pretty funny because I'm not as much of a Yankees fan now, but I do have a nice warm place in my heart. My dad's a huge Yankees fan. He loves the Yankees. And my brother is as well. So they're an iconic franchise.
Yeah. And a lot of people get into that. Now, when I was, I just like Reggie Jackson, and he was on the Yankees at the time. So that's sort of how I drifted. And then I was, who ironically is a Billy guy, by the way, Reggie, but, and then I got into, I rooted for that. I was never the type of person that would ship teams. Like if I took you, that was it. And from that day, that was it. But, yeah, I would say, cause I get a lot of young people trying to get into sports reporting, and they ask for advice and things like that. And I say, well, if you like the Eagles, don't cover the Eagles. Because if you want to keep your fandom, don't do it. Go in a different direction. But I do recommend, don't cover the team you like. You go learn the job with Jacksonville or Carolina or something.
You're right about the fandom thing. I mean, the more you work in it, the harder it is to really express that fandom. I hear you on that. John, let's get into this game a little bit. Good little tangent there on the Sixers and the Yankees and good stuff there. Appreciate everybody in the chat this morning. Let's talk Bengals, John, and we're going to start with Joe Burrow. There's a lot of people in the chat talking about Joe right now. Before I get into the game, how good is Joe Burrow to you? You mentioned it at the top of the show. We got a bigger audience now. Joe is top of the top, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's in the elite category. He's one of the few. Patrick would be in that category, obviously. Joe, Lamar, Josh Allen, I would put in that category. And I'm trying to think if there's anybody else.
Those are my four. I mean, when you talk about the top category, those are my four. I guess you could argue maybe like a CJ Stroud's emerging, but he's not.
Yeah, I haven't seen enough from him yet.
Agreed.
I'm looking down the list right now. Aaron, would have been in that category, but obviously has fallen off age and such. I thought he had one more in him, but evidently that's not going to happen. Jordan Love is the one I think is closest to it. Freaking Green Bay. I swear to God, they are the most spoiled fan base in the history of the world, by the way.
I'll give them credit. Their organization does a good job.
Yeah, they do. And Jared Goff's playing great this season, but I don't put him in that category.
I think he needs too much to around him.
Yeah, he needs. Same thing with Brock Purdy.
Right.
Those guys, too much. Yeah, those are the four, I would say. To me, those are the four truly, truly elite quarterbacks. And Jane Daniels, I think, has the potential to get there, but that's way too early. And Jordan Love, I think, is the closest to being there. If he can clean up some of the recklessness, he's going to be really good. He's already really good, but I think Jordan Love's going to be special. And then, I think Jaden Daniels is ahead of Caleb Williams. Caleb's doing some nice things, but I think if you look at the film, there's a lot of mistakes as well. I don't put him in the same category. Yeah, those are the 4 guys to me right now. And you can pick any of the 4, and I wouldn't argue if you want. You can make an argument for all 4. And obviously Patrick is going to win most because he's got the championships, but I think those 4 are head and shoulders above most other quarterbacks.
All right, let's get into the game now. Johnny Mac, you talk about an elite quarterback like that. It changes the way you approach a game. We'll start with the Eagles' defense. That pass rush, John, they're going to have to show up, man. Get Joe Burrow off his spot. Eagles defensively in this game, John. What's the approach, and what do you expect to see from Vic Fangio and the players on defense out there?
Yeah, I really think that is the approach. I mean, they have a poor offensive line, and that's how you beat the Cincinnati Bengals. It ain't going to be the coverage week. I can tell you that. If he's got time, if he's clean, you guys are going to be upset. And I think, Cooper DeJean is playing great. Quinyon Mitchell, so much optimism with the young players in that secondary. CJ's playing better. Reed's just been rock solid. Slay. It's not that the Eagles are bad, but Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are great. Yosebas, as I said, is making some plays. Mike Gesicki has never lived up to the hype coming out of Penn State, but he's very athletic still, and he can do some things. Not the best blocker in the world. So they do it kind of 2 ways with Drew Sample, but get to the quarterback. Get to the quarterback. And it's going to be interesting to see how Vic does that. Is it going to be more of a blitzing type thing? Because you can handle it both ways. You can say, well, I should be able to get home with 4. And then you put as many people in coverage. That's what he wants to do. That's what everybody wants to do. But can you do it? And if you can't do it, like I expect him to go into the game with that mentality. We should be able to get home with 4. But if it's not working, is he going to shift quickly enough to be a little bit more aggressive? Because I think the key is to speed Joe Burrow up. Because if you don't, you're not going to win the game.
Yeah, Joe Burrow is playing really good football right now. We mentioned his stats earlier. He's got 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and an 110 passer rating. Good for second in the NFL. A couple other stats here, like advanced stats, I guess you could call them. He's 4th in the NFL with 78.9% of his passes on target, and he has just 3 turnover-worthy plays and 256 dropbacks. So he is playing really good football, doing a lot of good things with the ball, obviously. And John pointed out the weapons. Their weapons are arguably as good as the Eagles. You can't say that often when the Eagles go up against a team that their weapons are comparable to the Eagles. The wide receiver group certainly is comparable to the Eagles wide receiver group. Now, I think we have the big advantage at running back. But anyway, it's going to be a tough matchup versus Joe Burrow. John, how do you see it playing out in the secondary cover, taking away those wideouts? It's going to be tough day for the secondary. They'll probably still sit in zone most of the time, but does that give you any concerns that Joe Burrow will just slice and dice his way?
This might, if you're not playing well, this could be one of those games where people hate, where the completion percentage is up in the 80s. As you just mentioned, he's very accurate. The Eagles are going to play a lot of zone. They always play a lot of zone. So this could be one of those games if the pass rush doesn't get home. And even if it does, I mean, I can't against this scheme. I'm chalking up 70 as the completion percentage. That's the baseline.
Yeah, literally.
I mean, what is his completion percentage? I don't even know, but it's probably close to 70 anyway.
Yeah, I think it's like
Um,
66 or 67. I'll look it up for us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting at 70, and hopefully it doesn't get to 80.
Wow, 70 right now. He's got
Yeah.
1,759 yards already, John.
Yeah, I mean, now I might have to start it at 75. All right, I'm gonna
Yeah,
start.
he's throwing 70.4% completion percentage.
I'm
Just
I'm
even
gonna
right
start
now.
the baseline at 75, and hopefully it doesn't get to 85.
Oh my lord! Who's in the chat telling me that Joe Burrow is not elite? Come on, everybody!
Yeah, come on. I mean, everything doesn't have to be. The other team has good players. It doesn't. Come on.
Yeah, but
I mean, if
Joe is
you're arguing
Joe is
Joe
a
Burrow's,
rarefied air type of quarterback. I mean,
if
he's
you're if you're arguing Joe Burrow isn't a good quarterback, I mean, come on. What are you doing? I mean, that's just blind fandom at that point because he happens to be playing your favorite team on a particular week. It's not going to hurt you to admit the other team has some good players. Trust me, it's not going to matter to the end game or who's going to win the game. He's really good. There's nothing wrong with stating the obvious.
no doubt about that. We'll see what they end up doing, how they end up covering those receivers. I think it simply boils down to the defensive line, John. We talked about it. I mean, if you don't get after Joe Burrow, he's going to sit there and slice and dice you. If you get after him and get him off his spot a little bit, you're going to make his life a little tougher. It'll be interesting to see how the Eagles approach him on D. I think the blitz rate against Joe Burrow right now is third lowest in the NFL. So I don't
Yeah,
expect
people,
Vic to
people
bring
don't
the
want
house.
that smoke to talk about the Street Profits, my wrestling reference. They don't. Yeah, this is not the guy you want to, especially with those receivers. And that's another part of, every week it's run pass ratio and is Vic going to blitz? Well, usually no. Vic's not going to blitz. 20% is where he's at right now. Bottom 10 in the league, right where he usually is. 21, 22%, a little bit lower.
I would expect that number to be down this week versus Joe Burrow.
It's all about situations too. I mean, if it's 3rd and 15, yeah, he might bring it to get the football out of his hands and then rally up and tackle. But even that, you got to be careful with this team because they can beat you down the field as well. So, yeah, this I said about there's so many games where I've said early this season because of the circumstance. I don't know how much you can take from it. Green Bay with the field, Tampa Bay with the Eagles injuries, and then the Giants last week. Because of the Giants last week, I don't know how much you can take from it. This is a game I think you'll be able to take something from, whether it's good or bad. I believe it will be meaningful. What happens in this game? Both teams are healthy enough. Both teams have enough of their big time players on the field. Yeah, Eagles don't have Mailata. They're probably not going to. They might have Orlando Brown. I think he was limited yesterday, but Goddard. Everybody's got little injuries. That's just part of the NFL. But I think there's enough from both sides to where you can say, all right, you can take something out of this game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. John, let's go to the Eagles offense and the approach to this game. First things first, you got to block Trey Hendrickson.
Whoa,
7
boy.
sacks, 3 games already this year with 2 sacks. The dude is an absolute beast. I would actually go as far as to say he's one of the more underrated pass rushers in the league.
Oh, yeah.
He is really good, and you don't have Jordan Mailata. So, you got to block that guy. I would expect some 12 personnel this week. Johnny Mac, approach on offense coming into this game, and especially with blocking Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because, look, I think the Eagles would want to limit, as you mentioned, pass rushing opportunities without Jordan on the field. and they were able to do that with the Giants and Brian Burns. But I think Cincinnati's going to score some points, so it's not going to be as easy as just say, all right, we're going to run it. And I don't think they're going to be up 21-3 in the fourth quarter and then 28-3 and close the game with 14 out of 15 runs. If they are, great. I mean, that things have gone perfectly. But I think Cincinnati's going to score some points. So that means Brett Johnson's going to have to hold up against Trey Hendrickson at times. And I don't like that matchup. And I just hope that the Eagles give him some help. Whether, as you mentioned, it's chips or, two tight ends on the field. Because let's be honest, they're not getting the ball to Jahan Dotson anyway. So you might as well play Calcaterra and Stoll to help out Fred Johnson a little bit. And I think that's how they should. But too often, man, the Eagles are used to having that luxury of leaving their tackles by themselves and saying, all right, we don't have to worry about those guys. Well, you do have to worry about Fred.
Yeah, I mean, the good news this week is that the Bengals defense, outside of Trey Hendrickson, it's not too good. It's not
No,
good
it
at
hasn't
all,
been good.
actually. So, I mean, if the Eagles can game plan to take him out of it, you can kind of pick and choose your spots throughout the rest of the field and maybe find the
And that's,
matchup.
that's part of it. The defensive front especially hasn't been great. And the opposite edge rusher to Trey hasn't done much. Sam Hubbard, decent player in the past, hasn't played well this season. They have Joseph Asai, who does some things. They have Miles Murphy, who hasn't been good. People might remember him, but they have some talent, but they haven't played that well. BJ Hill is a really good player, interior player though. And they have a really good defensive coordinator. He's gotten head coaching jobs, head coaching interviews. Lou Anamuro. Logan Wilson he's a good player. He's one of those linebackers. I thought, hey, Eagles, you might want to take a look at this guy. And he's turned into a really good player. So I think they're better than they played. Their secondaries, they lost. At one point, they were very good, which the Jesse Bates era. But now and Geno Stone got hurt last week. That's somebody to keep an eye on. If he's going to be healthy.
He had a pick last week, didn't he? Geno Stone? I thought he did.
He might have. I don't know, but he got hurt in the game, and it was pretty scary. But evidently, he's got a chance to play. But he hasn't played that well. He came from Baltimore. Dax Hill's a first-round pick. It's been, they moved him. He was a safety. They moved him to corner. He's been, their corners aren't very good. So that's a good matchup for the Eagles, obviously. But people want them to run the ball. So I don't know.
I want a balanced approach. I do think this is the week that you're going to see a lot of air raid. I mean, who's going to cover AJ Brown for them?
Yeah, they shouldn't be able to cover Devontae. AJ. I mean, their corners aren't good. So, I mean, if I'm the Eagles, that's what I'm looking at. I'm trying to take advantage of their corners.
Yeah, we'll see how the Birds approach this game. John, a couple super chats we'll get to before we get to Kaden Steele. Any other thoughts on this game here as we preview the matchup? I do think it's it's a tougher matchup when you talk about going up against Joe Burrow. I think their defense is pretty soft outside of Trey Hendrickson, so maybe a good opportunity for Jalen Hurts to find some rhythm to build on what he's done the last 2 weeks of turnover-free football. And kind of get going. Any other takeaways that you have?
I got a little more. Like I said, I think Logan Wilson's a really good player. 3rd round pick, by the way, 2020. Eagles should have taken him. I think he's a really good player. I think BJ Hill's I think they got a little bit more on defense than, you give him credit for, but the corners are the issue.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
I
know
think
how
that's where I'm salivating, John, because who's going to cover AJ and Devontae?
Yeah, well, yeah, but you gotta want to throw it, number one, and then it complicates. Like if Jordan Mailata's out there, like I don't even blink. I say, well, I'm taking advantage of those corners.
Yeah,
but now you got the added mixture of Brett Johnson against Trey Hendrickson, which I'm not, nearly as confident in, to put it mildly. So it's always tough, but that's the NFL. I mean, you're going to have matchups that are good in your favor, and you're going to have matchups that keep you up at night and say, well, how are we going to deal with this? And that's, the team that perseveres best is the team that's going to win. But I do think they have a little bit more on defense than I think maybe some people are giving them credit for.
yeah. I mean, maybe they do, and I think the secondary is really the big problem there. But I was looking at some stats, and these are credit to Elliott Shore Park, so shout out to him. He said 26th in PPD, John. What is PPD? Points per drive?
Yeah, points per drive. Yeah.
25th on third down, 27th in the red
well,
zone.
they haven't played well. Well, but I think
25th in sacks and 28th in pass rush per PFF. So, I mean, they got some players, but they're not overall. They're not a great unit.
No, but they do have a very good coordinator. And I think same as here, I think they're going to get better as the year goes on. And they're getting better. Now, part of that is they played the same teams the Eagles have played over the past 2 weeks and taken advantage of it. So part of it is that. But same thing I say for the Eagles is, that breeds confidence, and all of a sudden you see guys kind of feeling themselves on the defensive side of the ball. Confidence is a big thing in the NFL because all these guys can play. And when you believe in yourself and you're playing confident and you got your mojo, like Nick said about the pass rush, all of a sudden things start clicking. Same thing's happening here with the Eagles. And, with a couple tweaks, Cooper DeJean, and some of the other tweaks aren't as I was writing about that yesterday. Basically, Nolan Smith has taken over in the base package, which is the 5-man front from Bryce Huff, and basically Moro Ojomo's taken over for Jordan Davis on third downs, which may not be good long term for Howie Roseman, but it's helped the Eagles. And Vic doesn't give a what. So Lou's probably doing the same things, making those little tweaks along the way.
No doubt. Let's get to a couple super chats before we get to our guest, Kaden Steele, coming up in about 10 minutes from now. Appreciate everybody in the chat right now. Hit that like button, and big shout out to Dream Green, who became a YouTube member. Thank you, sir, for becoming a member. Supporting the channel means a lot to me, and I appreciate that. One other person in the chat was asking how to become a member. I think if you want to become a member, the link is right in the description of the video at the very top. The iPhones, for some reason, Apple and Google, John, they don't get along. Apple makes it hard for you to become a member. So it'll open up like a browser in your iPhone if you're watching on your phone. But the link is right there in the description. So if you want to become a member, we appreciate that support as well. So Dream Green, big thanks to you, brother. He dropped a super chat as well. He says, why not trade for Miles, considering Sweat is probably gone after the season?
What? Well, hey, I'm sure everybody would want Myles Garrett. I mean, yeah, I don't.
John, if he's available, I'm sending the.
I'm not. I don't. I refuse to believe Cleveland is trading Myles Garrett.
Yeah, I'm kind of with
it. I get it that they're having a bad season. Know Andrew Berry a little bit, their GM, from being here. He's not a dumb guy. And then when you say just trade for Myles Garrett, well, prepared to back up the Brinks truck, not only from a financial perspective, but from an asset perspective. If you do trade Myles Garrett, you're wanting a boatload in return in draft picks. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm betting against that one on Bet US. Everybody wants Myles Garrett.
Yeah. It's in season too, so I think there's going to be a lot. There would be a lot of bidders if he did become available. So we'll see what happens there. A lot of people looking for more edge help, Johnny Mac. Terry Hayes checks in. Big thanks to you, Terry. Terry says, I'm saying the Birds win. This game's going to tell us a lot about this team. It's probably not likely, but I'm saying this now. Q is going to pick off Burrow. Terry, you're playing with fire on that prediction, my friend. He's got 2 picks this year, 3 turnover-worthy plays, and almost 250 dropbacks. He's not a turnover-prone quarterback, but I appreciate the super.
Hey, you never know. You never know, but I know Quignon's working hard. He's had a bunch of opportunities, and once you get that first interception,
I know why Q wasn't a receiver, John.
Yeah. He's played well. Slay's given him the college approach with the stripe on the football. You can see it better. Because remember, when these corners are turning their heads in coverage, the football's right there. So you gotta recognize it, and it ain't easy. But no, I mean, look, if I'm a betting man, I'm not betting on Quignon picking off Joe Burrow. I might have bet on him picking up Daniel Jones, but
it's coming. One is coming. I will say that for Q.
Even more so Deshaun Watson. Yeah, it's coming at some point. And hey, Reed Blankenship intercepted Aaron Rodgers as an undrafted rookie. So you never say never. I'm just saying I don't like the odds.
One more super chat from Brian Fleming. Love it, Brian. Appreciate it, brother. He says, J-Mac, is Von Miller this year's Robert Quinn? I hope not.
Boy, well, I mean, I believe he's still suspended. He's suspended, number 1, for the personal conduct policy. He got in trouble. So I don't know. It's 4-game suspension. I don't know if he's off it yet, but boy, how old is Von? He's like 30, mid-30s.
That's what I don't want. That's why I'm so infatuated.
Yeah, he's 35. He's 35 years old. I mean, first ballot Hall of Fame player. But again, I think, people assume that first ballot are in a stasis forever. I mean, he's not the same player. The Eagles, it's a little bit disappointing, their pass rush to this point, but they're getting their mojo back, as Nick said. I don't think it's as big a problem as other people do. And I don't want a 35-year-old guy.
No, me neither.
And if Bond's he can still play, but do you think you're a legitimate top, we're talking about tier 1 quarterbacks. Do you think right now you're a tier 1 Super Bowl team? That's when you make a move like that and say, all right, we're getting a guy for half a season, bring us home. Is he that player? Probably not. Are you that team? Probably not. I wouldn't go in that direction.
That is more of a Howie move, though, than the big ones.
Well, it's more of a people don't trade Myles Garrett, so it's not like anybody's moves.
Yeah.
I mean, people like that aren't available unless they're so disgruntled they force their way out of a situation, which I've not seen from Myles. I don't even know where the Myles stuff is coming from, other than Cleveland stinks.
Yeah, that's it. I'm pretty sure that's the only spot it's coming from. Is that Cleveland sucks, and probably
everybody's taking the baseball mentality of, they're going to sell. It's going to be a fire sale.
Well, what are they going to do? I mean, they're in purgatory with Deshaun Watson. Dude.
Well, yeah, they got to fix that, and you don't fix that, if by trading away your best player mid-season, at least leverage it. You don't get a chance to leverage. Yeah, I don't. Wouldn't be the first time I'm wrong, but I would be shocked if Myles Garrett gets traded.
Me too. We'll see what ends up happening there. Big thanks to all of our super chats. today. Terry, Dream Green, Brian Fleming, and General JD. Good stuff from everybody. Good breakdown, John, of the Eagles-Bengals game. We'll get to a commercial break. We got Kaden Steele coming up in about 3 minutes on Birds 365. So we'll get to our commercial break now and talk to Kaden on the other side. Before I get to the commercial break, let me tell you guys about our great friends at BetUS. Check them out. I just added the graphic to the screen, and you can see the promo code to use, YouTube 150. It gives you a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So go check out BetUS today. That's betus.com.pa. betus.com.pa. They're the fastest payouts in the industry, 24/7 customer support, and they will even give you your own custom account manager. So go check out BetUS today. We'll be back in 3 minutes on Birds 365 with Kaden Steele.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on Sports Grid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid.
Score and save in Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood day.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Thursday edition of Birds 365. Joined now by Kaden Steele from NJ.com. Kaden, welcome to the show, man. Great to have you on. How you doing on this Thursday morning?
Doing great. Thanks for having me again, guys.
Good to see you, Kaden. Bengals week on to Cincinnati. But before we get to Cincinnati, I've been talking about this, man. It's been a weird season from the perspective of getting a feel for this team, whether it's the Tampa Bay game and you don't have AJ, DeMonte, Lane. I was like, all right, I'm not taking too much out of it. Same thing last 2 weeks. The Eagles got it done. Give them credit, especially against the Giants, knocking down the pin. But I'm not taking a lot from that game. I don't think you can use the transitive process and say, oh, they ran all over the Giants. They can do that against other teams. Where are you sort of gauging where this team is?
Yeah, I mean, I think I similar to you, I really don't know what this team is. Like, I don't know if they're good. I don't know if they're bad. Like it's been a weird season, and I think that's fair. The only thing I think I can go back to, and the thing I'm sticking to, is I look at the offense. I'm like, in my mind, they have enough offensive talent with AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon, Lane. If they get Jordan back healthy, probably to be a playoff team. Like, I just think there's too much there where they're going to be able to score enough consistently, and the schedule's not too hard other than a couple games down the stretch against like Baltimore, and it looks like Commanders are going to be a tough game. But other than that, the schedule is not overly difficult. So for that reason, I think they could find a way into the playoffs. But at the same time, I'm still concerned about the defense. Look, I get what they did the last 2 weeks, but it's against the Giants, who have Daniel Jones, one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, against Deshaun Watson, who's one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Two terrible offensive lines. Like, you got to give them credit for playing well against teams that they're supposed to play well against. But at the same, I'm still worried about the linebackers. Getting Kobe Dean had a big game, but they haven't been very consistent all year. I don't think all of a sudden the pass rushes. I think they figured some things out, but
they got their mojo.
Yes.
Kaden.
I'm not 100% convinced of that because I still don't know if I believe in the talent overall. So I mean, I have concerns about this team, but at the same time, I have some confidence. It's weird. I really don't. I guess we're really not going to find out who this team is until the back half of the schedule, and we'll see.
I think it starts this week, though. Cincinnati's not how I described it. Not a great team, but they're not a bad team. They have a great quarterback. Yeah. I think whatever happens in this game, you'll be able to take something from it. Good, bad, indifferent. I think this game you'll be able to say, all right, this is meaningful. That's how I kind of feel about this game going into it. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think especially on defense, I think we'll find out if these last 2 weeks were big-time improvements and if the D-line's got its mojo back. And we'll see because they got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and other weapons at the tight end position that they can use, like Eric All. Like, they have a lot of different guys. And you mentioned Joe Burrow being one of the best quarterbacks in football. And you saw this team go toe-to-toe with the Ravens, who you could argue is one of the best teams in football right now. They nearly beat the Chiefs if it wasn't for a pass interference. So their record, might not be great, but it at the same time, it probably doesn't truly indicate, what this team is. And it's going to be tough to stop Joe Burrow. If they could stop Joe Burrow and apply pressure on him and hold the Bengals to like 20 points or something, and then I think I could start to believe. But yeah, this could be the game that you kind of find out who they are for the rest of the year, for sure.
Yeah. Good luck stopping Joe Burrow. 14 touchdowns, 2 picks, 110 rating. You maybe can slow him down, Kaden. I don't think you're stopping Joe Burrow. Speaking of quarterbacks, Kaden, let me ask you about the quarterback on the other side, on the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts. Where are you on Jalen Hurts? How has your opinion of him changed this year, or has it not changed? What do you think of the quarterback of the Eagles right now in Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts has been fine. I don't think he's been great. I don't think he's been bad. I think he's kind of just been good enough, I think is the way I view it so far. I thought he played really well against the Browns. Like, even though the numbers weren't huge, I thought he made some big-time throws in that game. The offense in general wasn't functioning that well, but he played well in that game. And then last week, I don't think he played particularly well against the Giants, but at the same time, he wasn't asked to throw the ball a ton. They ran it a ton with Saquon, and obviously he had a big game. But in the throws that he did make, I don't think he looked very comfortable, and he wasn't.
Except the AJ throw.
Except the AJ. I mean, that throw is money every single time. And if you were basing off every throw to AJ, he would probably get A+ this year. But just overall, I think he's been a little up and down.
Well, I think that describes it. Like the 3rd and 3 before the AJ throw. It's like, what are you doing, dude? There's 2 receivers underneath open, and he's waiting and waiting and wait. I don't know what he's waiting for. And then on 4th and 3, it's the most beautiful throw you ever seen. It's got to be so frustrating for Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier. It's like, how do you go from that on one play and then perfect on the next play?
Yeah, and it's odd, and it's some of the same problems that we saw last year. And everyone's talked about Jalen the entire time he's been here. And the big thing is, he takes stuff that he sees, during the season. He's one of the hardest workers, and I'm not doubting that. And he improves those things. But I think we're seeing some of the same things linger over now, and I wonder if this is kind of just who he is. Like, he's an up and down quarterback. He doesn't always take the easy stuff, but he has enough arm talent and athletic ability to make some big time plays, whether that's a huge shot down the field or extending something, and you kind of live with some of the ugly stuff. But yeah, I think there's times where the offense is not as efficient as it can be because Jalen is frankly just not playing very well at times. And but I do think there is times where he does do good stuff. So it's kind of, you got to take the good stuff with the bad, I guess, for now. But it's been a weird year for him.
Yeah.
Kaden, I got one big problem coming into this game. All right. You're going up against Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. You cannot have 0 points in the first quarter when you go up against an offense like that. This team has real firepower. There's a good chance this is a shootout type of a game. Will the Eagles get that fixed this week?
I mean, nothing this season says that they'll get it fixed. I mean, it helps that, Cincinnati's defense is particularly not very good. I know they've played better the last 2 weeks, but they had the same thing.
Same opponents. Yeah.
Same opponents.
Like
all of a
magic.
sudden, they're one of the worst defense in the league. Now they seem like they fixed all their problems.
Yeah.
Let's see if that's true in this game. So from that fact that I don't think Cincinnati's defense is very good, maybe the Eagles would be smart just to go early on, deep shot to A.J. Brown. Maybe that's what they need to get the game going. But yeah, the offensive scripts and just the flow of the game early on, it's just been not very good this year. Against the Giants, just taking sacks early on. It took them a while to settle down. I'm not sure how they get things going. I mean, Nick's talked about in WIP this week, as I asked about yesterday, but I mean, talked about maybe becoming, a running team. Maybe they run the ball earlier with Saquon and get him involved, and that's how they get things going. But they have to score a lot of points in this game because, I mean, you're right, Zander. If they get down 14-0, 17-0 against this Bengals team, which I have more confidence the Bengals can score points against the Eagles than the Eagles can score against the Bengals. So
that's amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
But from when we thought this offense, it's going to be great, it's going to be historic, and now we're worrying about scoring points with the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't disagree with you. I'm wondering if they can win that shootout game now. If Cincinnati shows up and scores 35, can they win 38-35? Right now, before the season, I said, yeah, they can win that game. Right now, I don't know if they can win that game.
Yeah, and I'm not sure either. And I think it could be as simple as Joe Burrow is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. So, in those moments, if this is a tight game, I mean, I'd rather have Joe Burrow. And about it for the last 2 years. We blame a lot of the play calling, which I think is true to some degree. And Nick's offensive system last year wasn't working, and Kellen's come in this year, and it's not magically fixed, all of their problems. At some point, you have to blame the personnel. And look, I don't think A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith's the problem. I don't think Saquon's the problem. I don't think the offensive line's necessarily the problem. At some point, you have to look at the quarterback, and I'm not saying this is all his fault, but you have one of the best skill groups in football, a really strong offensive line. I know right now because of the injuries, you could make an argument it's not a really strong offensive line, but in general, the offense hasn't been producing to the level of its talent the last 2 years, and play calling can't be the only thing that gets blamed. Like, a lot of this has to shoulder on Jalen Hurts, and if it's a shootout, it's gonna be interesting to see if he can keep up with Joe Burrow. 2 years ago, I mean, I don't think you would have had any doubt he's playing at MVP level. Now, I think Jalen Hurts is a mystery box. You don't know what he is. Is he good? Yeah. Is he average? Is he bad? I think it really depends on the week, and I think the Eagles are hoping he gets back to being consistently good, and maybe this is the week. But in a shootout, I mean, I'm not sure if they're going to be better than Cincinnati. And Johnny, make a good point. This Eagles offense should be better. Like, the wide receivers, you can make an argument about equal, but after that, the Eagles have a better running back. Even banged up, they probably have a better offensive line. Cincinnati's offensive line is not that good.
Yeah.
I know Goddard's out, so I mean, you got to take some things with consideration, but this offense should be better than Cincinnati's, and it's not. And the biggest thing I can think of is just Joe Burrow is better than Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, well, sometimes that's what it boils down to in the NFL. You talk about the offense. I think they have a good chance to have a good week. I mean, that Bengals defense doesn't really strike much fear in me, the secondary especially. I don't see how they're going to take away A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith. Now, they do have Troy Hendrickson, and we do have a hurt left tackle. So what's the game plan for him, Kaden? How do you take Troy Hendrickson, a guy who has 7 sacks already this year, 3 games of 2+ sacks this year? How do you take him out of the game?
Yeah, and Fred Johnson struggled a little bit early on in that Giants game as a pass protector. But I think the one thing you saw him do is he settled down when they started running the ball more, getting to the second level, making blocks on linebackers. And look, the Eagles pass rush talked about it at the beginning of the year, and I think it holds true for the rest of the NFL. The best way to negate a pass rush, especially a guy who's an elite pass rusher, is by running the football early on. And we'll see how much they go back to Saquon. But if they can establish the run, I think that truly does help negate, a guy like Trey Hendrickson. But it's going to be difficult, especially if they have to pass the ball. If this gets a shootout and it's 1-on-1 with Fred Johnson, it could get ugly. But I mean, I think
I don't like that matchup.
I don't like the matchup, but like overall, Cincinnati's defensive line doesn't draw any fear in me. Like they don't really have another pass rush.
They don't have the second guy, so
maybe you could draw extra attention. The Trey Hendrickson, chip him with, look, Grant Calcaterra is not a great blocking tight end, but maybe chip him with Jack Stoll or whoever.
Oh, that's an issue I have with the Eagles. It seems like they're a little bit too much next man up. Everybody plays that card, but you got to be realistic. If you go back to the Cleveland game, and they won the game on the play. So it works out, but it necessarily the deep shot to AJ. They're leaving Fred 1-on-1 with Myles Garrett. Like, I don't think that's a good decision.
Right.
Yeah,
now they got the ball quickly. It's a go route, blah, blah, blah. It worked out. Ultimately, I don't think that's a good decision.
No, because I think 9 out of 10 times that's not going to work.
Yeah, and I think the ball just got out quickly or it wouldn't have worked. And, Jalen's propensity to hold on to the football occasionally. And all of a sudden, perfect can turn into disaster. But yeah, I think they should. And one of that comes back to the first quarter stuff. So you mentioned Nick on WIP, Kaden, and he went into pander mode. We're a running team. We're going to run the football. And every time he talks to us, he's like, we're going to do what we need to do that week to win the game. And I think he's a little bit more honest. And look, Cincinnati, if you go back to the Giants game, which is part of the problem, it was punt, 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 punt. And the Eagles kind of felt, well, we can keep running the ball because this team's never going to score. I think it because if the Eagles go punt, 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 they're going to be down 10-0.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes, you're really going to be that disciplined at that point to keep running the football? I don't think it's possible to play that way unless you're playing the New York Giants. And as you mentioned, there's a big difference between Joe Burrow and Daniel Jones. So do you think Nick was pandering, or they're going to run the football and everybody in Philadelphia is going to be happy it's 1975 again?
Yeah, probably a little bit of pandering. He knows the audience early morning on WIP, and look, he's probably excited.
Lowest common denominator.
Yeah, probably excited, and just Saquon had a big game, but sometimes I think Nick just says things and then changes his course. But I mean, the only way they could run the ball, I guess, is if you really, really set the tone early in that game, and you take the 14-0 lead or the 10-0 lead, and you're able to kind of just wear out Cincinnati, and that's how you win. But I probably not realistic because I expect some explosive plays from Cincinnati's offense with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. We saw the A.J. Brown 40-plus yard touchdown. Wouldn't be surprised if Jamar Chase and T. Higgins got 1 or 2 of those. And if that happens, there's no way that you could just keep running the ball. I mean, I guess you could argue if you can go on long 7-8 minute drives, and that's how you do it. But I just don't know if the Eagles are efficient enough efficient enough overall as an offense to sustain a lot of those, especially early on. So,
what's your expectation for Saquon Barkley in this game? I'm not expecting them to be the running game, but I mean, shit, you have a player that's as dynamic as he is, right? He's got to be an impact in a game like this. How do you expect them to use him if it's not, become the bully ball team that many want in Philly? What do you expect from Saquon this week, Kaden?
yeah, I still think he'll get his fair, share of touches, but will he go for 176 again? Maybe not. But I mean, Cincinnati's not a great defense.
Bet the under on 176.
Yeah, I'll bet the under on that too.
Yeah.
No, but you're right. They're not a great run defense.
Not a great run defense. He might go for 100 some again, but I don't expect it to be the level against the Giants. But I still think you have to feed him. But are you going to be able to pass the way you get against the Giants and basically run it like, a really conservative offense? I don't think so. So I don't think he'll be as involved, but he's going to be a big part of this offense. I mean, look, he's the second best player on this offense. And that's no knock on Devontae Smith or Daz Goddard, but he's probably your second premier take over a game player. And I truly believe that. So, I mean, there's a chance every week that he can do something like that. I do believe he has the talent. But overall, I think this is an A.J. Brown game. And Devontae Smith went for -2 yards last week. I think they're going to really try to get him involved as well. So I think they're going to try to open up this passing game. And John made a good point. I think they might have to. So I don't expect Saquon to do what he did last week. But
all right, let me ask you about this then, and John, I'll get your response as well. Kaden, we'll start with you. Why do I feel like getting into a shootout with Joe Burrow is a losing formula? And the best way to mitigate that is how? Probably control the clock, run the ball, keep Joe off the field for as long as you can. Mitigate Trey Hendrickson by running right at him. I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to be the ground and pound guy, but this seems like maybe a good time to do that just for the reasons that I don't think you want to get in a shootout with Joe Burrow. I don't think we're going to win it. I'm sorry. I just don't. Is that a wrong approach, you think, Kaden?
Not necessarily, because I don't feel very confident they'll win a shootout. Because, like I said, when it comes to shootouts and things like that, I would usually lean with the guy that I trust more to make the big plays and to be more consistent in that shootout at the quarterback position, and that's Joe Burrow. I mean, just everything I've seen this year. Look, he's been not as great the last 2 weeks, but what I saw in that Ravens game, except for the bad interception, and just generally throughout his career, is just in these moments, I have trust in Joe Burrow, and the defense for Cincinnati is not good, but either is the Eagles. I don't think look, I get what they did last 2 weeks, but
9 quarters, Kaden. 9 quarters.
I just trust them to make enough stops in this game as well. So, I mean, this is tough. I don't think you want to be in a shootout in general against a team like Cincinnati. So I don't think you're wrong for that. And if it does, I mean, Jalen Hurts is going to have to play one of his best games of the year. And whether you trust him to do that or not, that's up to you. I don't know if I have supreme confidence of him being able to outdo Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I'm with you, Zander. I don't think they can win a shootout in this game. I'm just saying, like for me, if I'm the Eagles, I'm being honest with myself, and I'm like, if I win the coin toss, I'm taking the ball, and I want an 8-minute drive to start. I want to shorten the game, but they don't play like that because they have this incredible hubris to think that they have a better matchup against everybody, and they have a difficult time being honest with themselves. But even in that scenario, I think Joe Burrow is going to score some points, and at some point, you're going to have to make big throws to beat him. Period. Whether it's shootout or 24-21 or 14-13, at some point you're going to have to make a play in the passing game. It's not going to be the New York Giants. It's not going to be we're going to roll over and you can pet my belly, which is what the Giants did. It's not going to be like that. You're going to have to make plays. And if we've gotten to that low a level, I have not personally. I think Jalen Hurts, I always say, he's a relentless player. He can look shitty for 3 quarters, and he's still going to come, and you're going to have to stop him. I still think he can make big plays in big spots, but they're going to have to make a big play in a big spot to beat the Cincinnati Bengals in the passing game. I firmly believe that. And why shouldn't they be able to? Like, since we're using WIP this morning, the old Howard Eskin cliche, very old Howard Eskin. If you're scared, go buy a dog. I mean, what are you scared of? Quarterback's going to make a play. It's the NFL. It's a good team. You're against Joe Burrow. And we're all, I don't know if Jalen can do this. I don't know if Jalen can do that. He's a runner-up to the MVP 2 years ago. Make a play. He made a play the past 2 weeks, DJ. He can make a play. Why is everybody, Jalen can't do this, Jalen can't do that, Kaden? Why? I mean, it hasn't been consistent. It's got to get more consistent. But I think too many people are going the other way now.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think he still can make a play. And I think you pointed out his biggest strength is, it's an underrated strength for a quarterback, is be able to make clutch plays in big moments. And I think he has shown that throughout his career, even when he has struggled. I think generally it's probably the consistency because, look, he made those plays, the one big play to AJ, he made some of those huge throws against Cleveland. And I said he played well against Cleveland, not so much against the Giants, but he still made the plays that mattered in that game. Well, he's outdueling, Daniel Jones and Deshaun Watson. I think you're going to have to be more consistent throughout, first quarter to the fourth quarter against a guy like Joe Burrow. And it's not going to be just the one or two big shots to AJ. I mean, he's going to have to, hit the stuff, that the easier stuff consistently throughout the game. And I think maybe that's why, people are a little hesitant about Jalen, or a lot of people kind of counting Jalen out. Maybe they're leaning towards him not being a good quarterback. I think I have seen more of that recently. So maybe that's a little bit of a surprise, but
yeah,
overall,
I've seen a lot of that recently. I'm not at that point yet.
Yeah. I'm not.
The owner of the team can't be happy about that. Because if you do look at the team, right, I mean, it looks like they built this team to be a shootout team. Like that's how I think they designed them to try and be like that.
Yes, they did.
And I don't really think, and I'm not even saying this to criticize Jalen, right? Because I think you should accentuate the talents of your players. I don't think that's Jalen's game. It never has been his game to be a shootout type of quarterback. He wins in different ways. He's a different approach to the game. He's a more of a dual threat quarterback. I don't know. I don't see it with the shootout thing. But you're right. In 22, he was capable of it. So I don't want to say he can't do it. But I don't know, man. I keep questioning whether they built this team the wrong way, because you built a shootout team with a quarterback that's not a shootout quarterback, right? I mean, it's an interesting setup.
Yeah, but I mean, you made a fair point, Zander. But at the same time, it's weird because I mean, we've seen him do it. We also saw him do it against Josh Allen last year, and they beat him in overtime with a big game. So we've seen Jalen Hurts.
Seen him do it against Patrick Mahomes on the biggest stage. Yeah.
Beat some of the best quarterbacks, or be close to beating some of the best quarterbacks. But yeah, I think John's point's the most fair. I mean, it's just consistency. I don't doubt that Jalen Hurts has talent still, or that he can make cuts plays. Something is off in the last few years where. Whether that's him just not really seeing eye to eye with the last two offensive coordinators or in the offensive system or something, but it's not consistently there. But I still think we see it in flashes. So we'll see. I mean, it's possible that he has another big game, but
yeah, I'd like to, Netflix to bring back the Mindhunter series. I don't know if you guys watched that. That was a great series, and it got killed by the pandemic. But, preseason, like so many Eagles fans are like, this is the greatest offense in the history of the world. And now, week 7, week 8 into the season, we're like, oh, they got to scale back and run the football. I mean, to Zander's point, they built this offense to be the best offense in the NFL personnel. That's the expectation. And then it takes 7 weeks to pull the plug. Oh, we got to run. We got to scale back and run it 45 times. I got to study these people and say, how do you make that shift that quickly with AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Lane Johnson, Jalen Hurts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I will never understand that. But this is the game where I think we can finally take something out. And from both perspectives, defensively, offensively, I set the number at 75% completion percentage as the baseline. Joe Burrow over 75 or under 75, Kaden Steele. I think this might be a 90 game.
Yeah, probably over.
Well, he's 70 on the year, so add that context in.
75 is the baseline.
Yeah,
it's got to be over, right? It's got to be
over or just around 75, 72, 73. I think he's going to have a big game. Look, if they can't get pass rush, and last 2 weeks they've been able to, and like I said, Cincinnati's offensive line is not great. So if they can get him off his spot, maybe that's a lower number, and the Eagles defense.
Boy, that'd be successful, man. I will be lauding them. If they
that'd be the biggest storyline from the whole game. Yeah. Less about the offense. If this defense can shut down Joe Burrow, Vic Fangio has found something. And if Nolan Smith has another big game and Jacoby Dean looks good, I mean, like everyone was celebrating after the Giants game. Jalen Carter looked good. Bryce Huff got a sack. Josh Sweat looked good. Like everyone looked good. This is the ultimate test. You can't get after Joe Burrow. They talk about the pass rush and the secondary being a marriage. I don't think the secondary is going to survive on the island versus Jamar Chase and T. Higgins very often. Look, I
don't think I'd even blame them if they couldn't survive on that island.
No. Well, they don't play on islands either. Vic doesn't put them on islands. That's the positive of Vic Fangio. But I will say, I think it was obvious to most people. The big change was obvious coming out of the bye. Cooper DeJean for Avonte Maddox should have been. I think he should have made that change earlier, to be honest. And it's worked out beautiful. Cooper's playing great. Again, context of the opponents. But he made two other small tweaks, Kaden. And, boy, they might be a problem in Howie Roseman. Nolan Smith is playing in the base defense now, which is 5-man fronts for the Eagles, over Bryce Huff, who got paid $51 million. And Moro Ajomo is getting more reps on third down, and Jordan Davis is getting less reps on third down as the former 13th overall pick, always the 13th overall pick. But, boy, could that be a problem down the road?
Yeah, I think Vic doesn't really care.
He does not. He does not.
He talked about it in the press.
God bless him. Yeah,
I love the comment. I mean, they asked him about. Was it someone asked
Nolan and Bryce, and it was like all flowers for Nolan. And oh, by the way, we played more pass rush. So
yes, and that's Bryce just him telling you Bryce can't play against the run. I mean, he's telling you out loud bluntly. I don't think Bryce Huff can play against the run. He's not going to play in the base package for that reason. And if, as it maybe in Vic's mind, and maybe that's what some of the rest of the league thought, he looks at Bryce and he thinks he's a situational pass rusher. And that's
he is, by the way. Vic's correct.
Yes, and he can't play against the run. And I think the Eagles wanted him to be more. I think they evaluated him and they saw something more. And Vic doesn't see that so far. And it's the same thing with Jordan Davis. And Jordan Davis, I don't think it's a terrible player. Still think he's decent against the run. But Moro Ajomo is a better pass rusher. He's a 7th round pick, but Vic Fangio does not care about draft status and all that. He's just going to play the players who best fit, who are better pass rushers on third down and better run players on first down. Could it be a problem? Yeah. I mean, you just invested $17 million in Bryce Huff. And look, he's looked better the last 2 weeks. And it's against the Giants and Browns. So there's some of that context as well. But I don't think Bryce Huff is a bad player. I think the Eagles misevaluated him possibly and put him in a position that he wasn't ready for. It's fine. Some guys are meant to just be really good rotational pass rushers.
Yeah, nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with it, but they don't make $17 million a year.
No, that's the problem. And the same thing with Jordan Davis. He's a 2-down player. You don't take 2-down players with the 13th pick in the draft, but hey, Vic's right. Howie's wrong.
If it's a shootout, he might be a 1-down player, John.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I mean, but if Howie knocks on Vic's office, I'd like to be a fly on that wall because I got a feeling Vic would say, hey, kick rocks. I'm trying to win games, dude.
It'd be great to be a fly on that wall. Kaden, man, final prediction on this game. I'm getting a a contrasting vibe from you. You think they could win it. You still have some issues you're trying to work through mentally. Where are you?
They've never won in Cincinnati, Kaden
Oh.
Steele. I'll throw that in as well.
Yeah, I'll throw out a prediction. I'll go 30-27 Bengals.
All
I
right.
think we'll be close, but
All right, first prediction of the week on Birds 365, and it comes down for the Bengals.
All right. I think I'm leaning in Caden's direction. That's a little foreshadowing, but obviously
foreshadowing of tomorrow. Kaden, great stuff, man. Thank you for joining the show today. I thought you brought up some really good points, some great analysis, as always, and you're doing great work at NJ.com. Make sure everybody reads Kaden at NJ.com. And Kaden, what's your X handle again? Sorry, I don't have it.
Kaden underscore Steele at 19 or
Kaden under and
yeah, sorry.
I love Caden's name. I'm obsessed with Caden's name. Now that Kaden Stearns is gone, Caden is the only Caden.
Kaden Steele is the best
Steele.
name.
It sounds like a marble name.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best Kaden name in town for sure.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Good stuff, Kaden. Thanks for joining, man.
Thanks, bud.
Good stuff there from Kaden Steele. Appreciate him joining the show here on Birds.
Caden Steele sounds.
It is a cool name. It is a cool name. It is a cool name. I'll give you that, Johnny Mac. Great stuff, John. Today, good show. We got only a couple minutes, about 6 or 7 minutes left to kick it around here, John. Before I get your final thoughts on today's show, I want to read you something that's on my timeline as I just opened up my X account. I was looking for Kaden, and you wonder why people are questioning Jalen Hurts right now, right? Here's a quote, and I don't have the full interview or anything, but just a quote that's on the timeline, which skews opinions of people, and right or wrong. Greg Cosell, who's a guy that many people respect. He's been around for 40 plus years. He's been an NFL films producer, highly regarded for his football knowledge. People like what he has to say. Here's the quote. They're a difficult offense to watch right now. Jalen Hurts is not playing very good football. He's just not seeing things clearly right now. That really handicaps and hamstrings your offense when your quarterback just can't execute basic concepts. End quote. That's what Greg Cosell had to say on the Ross Tucker podcast. Those are the type of narratives, John, that are coming out, and they're not just from, I think reactive people. I mean, Greg Cosell does tape. I mean, we might not agree with him or whatever. That's fine. But
no, Greg's very good.
Yeah, Greg's very good. I mean, and I think that's where people, they get worried, because I think the question is, and I went back and I watched a 45-minute video of 22 highlights from Jalen Hurts. He just doesn't look like that guy anymore, right? Like, he just doesn't. Yeah, and then you add in people saying this like Greg, and I think there's a theme developing of people like, boy, is Jalen Hurts holding back this high-powered offense? You didn't think that in 22 at all. Maybe those thoughts are starting to grow in people's minds now.
Oh, well, there's no doubt they're growing in people's minds. And I get why. I mean, right now he's not making sharp, quick decisions. I bring up the time to throw. It's the same thing, just a different way to say it.
Right. He's
not trusting what he sees. He's not taking what's there. He's spending too much time, I think, looking for the big play down the field at times, not always, but at times. So yeah, he's got to get sharper. I said 3.1's got to be 2.78. And that means quicker decisions, more declarative, bang, football's out. And then you factor in the extending plays, and that is always going to raise his number up a little bit. And that's part of his game and should be part of his game. But I have no problem. I said, for all the people blaming the coaching staff constantly, I said, the one common denominator here is not Nick Sirianni, it's Jalen Hurts. When Kellen Moore's offense looks like Nick Sirianni's offense, and I don't know how many times I can tell this to people, Kellen Moore's calling the freaking plays. And I don't care if you believe it or not. He's calling the plays. He's making the game plan. And you think it's a Nick Sirianni offense. It's a Jalen Hurts offense. And it's got to get better, and he's got to get better. But now I think people have taken it too far, and some people, not all people. You have different groups. Obviously, you have a group that always wants to blame the coaches. You have a group that always wants to blame the quarterback. And the group that always wants to blame the quarterback is taking it a little bit too far and not looking at the give and take of some of the good. And there's still plenty of good, but the bad's got to get better. And there's no evidence that it's going to get better. And I think that is legitimate criticism. It's legitimate to point out. And it hasn't gone away. And until it goes away, it's a problem. And you look at some of the first quarter struggles last week against the Giants. It was about the sacks, and sometimes it was phantom pressure. Wasn't even there. Maybe not trusting Fred Johnson. And I think he's got a problem. I bring up that Kirk Cousins play to Gadaro Hodge. I brought it up yesterday. That to me is the emphasis of a veteran quarterback. All right, Drake London went down. Kadaro Hodge isn't as good as Drake London, but that's where the ball's supposed to go. And then it's on Kadaro Hodge, and he made a play and won a game. If it's Jahan Dotson here or somebody like that, and they drop the football, that's on Jahan Dotson. Put the ball where it's supposed to go, where the progression says it's supposed to go, and see what happens.
We'll see. We'll see, boy. This offense is built to pass the football, and I think there are some concerning things there, but I'm still optimistic. By the way, sometimes when you do a show, you feel like you're not optimistic.
I think this gets people really optimistic. If they go in this game and win again, they've never won in Cincinnati. Not a great team, but a good team, a solid team. It's not the Giants. It's not the Browns. This is a legitimate team. I think this will really give them some confidence that they're able to go on the road and get this football game, and they play well. I think then they might start cooking a little bit.
If it becomes a shootout, I'm not going to feel too great about this thing.
No, and that's disappointing. Because to be honest, I'm with you. I don't think they win a shootout.
And that's not even a knock on Jalen. You're talking about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase.
Yeah, but you should. It is a little bit of a knock on Jalen from my perspective. I'm just being honest, because with their talent, they should be able to beat anybody in a shootout, and I don't feel they are right now. And it's not because of AJ or Devontae or Saquon. It's because of the quarterback. That's why I don't think they can win the shootout. So I'm just being honest. I'm not saying I'm right. That's just where I am right now with this team.
All right, we'll see how it all plays out. Appreciate everybody here today. We'll have another great show. John, anything on the docket for the Eagles today? Are you heading down to the NovaCare Complex?
Yeah, man. Thursday practice, locker room. I'm down there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Never stops.
Never stops. And Sundays.
It's going quick for everybody else. It ain't going quick for me. I got news for you.
Oh, really? I feel like this 8 weeks, man, it's going by quick. Now I'm not doing that. I work in an office all day.
The season is a freaking grind. I think people don't realize.
People don't realize that it's a grind for people like you.
Well, it's a grind for the players, man.
It's a grind for the players, I know, but it's also a grind to cover. It's also a grind to do, to commit the 6 months. I have no problem with it. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's a grind. Which I love.
A grind. And even God bless the NFL. They've made the calendar so well. Everybody's obsessed with the NFL for 12 months a year, but the season. I mean, like I said, Monday's Nick's post. Even Monday, you got Nick talking the post game press conference. Tuesday, you got the coordinators. Yeah. Wednesday, you got practice, locker room. Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts. Thursday, you got practice, locker room. Friday, you got Nick, practice, locker room. It never stops, man.
You think Jalen Hurts is holding up physically right now?
Yeah, he's fine. Yeah. He's physically fine.
Yeah. I was just watching. I was watching.
You bring up quarterback. That's an interesting. You bring up the quarterback show on Netflix.
Yeah, that's what I've been watching. It's really good.
If you see how banged up Kirk Cousins is in that show,
that's the episode I just watched. Yeah,
he was never on the injury report that year. So I think a lot of people assume, oh, they're on the field, they're fine. By this point of the season, they're on the field. Everybody's banged up. It's still, as much as they've tried to take the physicality out of football, you can't take it out of football. And you might see Zach Bond playing this week. He's not going to be 100%.
Yeah.
And that's some guys like Kirk, and that's why I brought it up. They don't want to be on the injury report because they don't want to hint what's going on to defenders trying to take shots at him. Yeah, it's brutal sport from that perspective.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Last thought, and I want to shout out to JT. I like this. He says, Big Z or Money McMullen. That's the best McMullen nickname I've ever heard, JT. Money McMullen. I love it. I got to get a shirt made with John with some cash in his hand. Money McMullen. I love that.
I keep waiting. I keep waiting for my shirts. I keep waiting. Yeah,
John's not buying my shtick anymore on the merch. Do you think Jalen is more confident with Calcaterra at tight end?
No. What do you mean then?
Well,
Dallas?
no, I just think.
You mean the Dallas? No, no. He's got a lot of trust in Dallas. I think he's growing. He played a very short time with Grant in college. For those who don't know, at Oklahoma, I think he's got more trust in Grant than the other backups, but no, he's got a lot of trust in Dallas Goedert.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Great show today, my man. Appreciate everybody in the chat as always, man. You guys are the absolute best. Hit that like button for us. I'm trying to boost the numbers on Birds 365. We're getting trounced by the afternoon show when it comes to likes.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
Smash
what the
that
hell?
like button. Yeah, gotta smash that.
What the hell?
What's
Well,
that?
I said, what the hell is that about? I don't like that.
Celia, I gotta give it to Celia. That dude's a like machine. He gets. I mean, the people flock to the Big Sill show. They really do. But appreciate everybody today. Hit that like button on your way out. Johnny Mac, great show, man. Talk to you tomorrow. All right, brother?
All right, sounds good.
Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.